Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Tim Pruitt. I'm the CEO and president of the Hunger Project, and I'm honored to be moderating today's panel. It features some truly exceptional speakers from around the world, and I'm delighted you could join us. Now, before we get started, I'd just like to start with a few logistics. We will all have an opportunity to answer audience questions at the end of our roundtable discussion. And what we ask for the audience is that please submit your questions through the program using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. So just go ahead and type those questions in there, and we'll get to those at the end of the roundtable. So today we're here to talk about connectivity. And you may wonder why the president and CEO of the Hunger Project is talking about the internet. Well, the Hunger Project is in the business of ending hunger, not just fighting it. And the actions we take today to truly end chronic hunger are different than the actions that one would take to fight hunger. Our holistic approach addresses inequities that are at the root of hunger, including fundamental issues like connectivity. Now, the past 2 years have really shown us the importance of addressing the inequality in connectivity globally, as COVID-19 has driven us behind our screens for everything from business to socially distant celebrations and family connections. And when we look at this challenge, it's important to understand where those inequalities lie. First, there's the gap between the global South and the global North. There's also a difference, though, in accessibility in rural versus urban areas. And perhaps one of the most significant challenges we face is the gender digital divide. According to the UN, the gender digital divide blocks more than 2 billion women from accessing agriculture, health, education, and civic engagement opportunities. Women are on average 14% less likely to own mobile phones than their male counterparts, and 43% less likely to engage online. Now, what makes this so challenging is that it's not just access to technology that's preventing women from being meaningfully connected. In many communities, particularly in rural communities, social norms based on traditional patriarchal systems, digital illiteracy, and a lack of knowledge about digital tools, as well as a lack of agency, can prevent women from getting online. Today, we're going to dive deeper into this challenge and explore the ways that governments, companies, and NGOs are coming together to support women as they bridge the divide. Now I have the honor of welcoming Madam Binta Diop, Special Envoy of the Chairperson of the African Commission on Women, Peace and Security. Madam Diop is also a member of the Hunger Project's Global Board of Directors. She's here to start our program with the role of the African Women Leaders Network in supporting women across Africa. Madam Diop.
Thank you very much, Tim. Let me really recognize a great women of Africa, Excellency, Madam Amina Gourab-Fakim, the former president of Mauritius. Madam, welcome, and we appreciate your presence. So, Tim, it's a pleasure for me to be present today in this platform at the launch of the project on connectivity piloted by the Hunger Project, Microsoft, and Blue Town. And really, I congratulate you for this project, the partnership that you have built, and commend this initiative that not only brings to the forefront the issue of connectivity in Africa, but also the disproportionate access to such technology. So thank you, and thank your team. So this high-level panel, which is being held in the margin of the UN General Assembly, and on the theme of bridging the digital divide and a focus on women's, I think it comes at a timely juncture when Africa has been mobilizing in tackling the fourth industrial revolution. This divide is particularly noticeable between urban and rural communities, between those who are educated and those who are not, between developed and developing countries, So this initiative could not have come at a better time. Indeed, the Hunger Project, and you have said it, and I'm part of this Hunger Project, the vision is to build communities' self-reliance and resilience, to end hunger and poverty by pioneering a sustainable grassroots women-centered strategy and advocating for their their sustainable livelihood, and to make sure that we advocate for the adoption in countries throughout the world, not just in Africa, but all over the world. I'm happy that THP is mobilizing and investing in socio-economic fields in a platform that include Microsoft, its private sector, Microsoft and Blue Town, which will bring internet access to women in rural Ghana. But allow me to add that, leadership is critical in order to change the narrative and push forward the implementation of gender equality frameworks and put women at the decision table, at the forefront. So the African Women Leaders Network that you just mentioned, across have adopted pillars which aim to address issues that affect the life of women, including, their economic and social inequalities, agriculture challenge, innovation, technology. So we are really in the agenda today that we are discussing, and Aulin is part of this. So let's say that the digital empowerment of women, especially on women, especially those who are in communities, I think it is imperative. We need to do that. So for example, let's look at the agriculture sector. 70% of women are in the value chain of agriculture. So, and we do recognize that access to technology will be an accelerator to food security in Africa. So I think we can say today that Aulin, for example, support an initiative that is called IWA, Empower Women in Agriculture, a solution driven by women cooperative in partnership with public and private sector. So I think, team, we are on the right path. What you are doing in Ghana, we need to recognize it and make sure that we can scale it. But as I said, leadership matters. And when we say leadership matters, women leadership matters the most. And that's why I'm saluting the leadership of Madame Amina Al-Ghurab, who is here. I am sure that you will listen to her. I always admire her when she speaks to our forum in the Aulin Forum for the work that she has done to transform her country, because you need leadership to transform development agenda. And she is about that. Let me also recognize our youth, Nomso Kano, because Nomso is in the office of President Ramaphosa of South Africa, and an intellectual, a scientist, everything in that young woman. So you can see that Aulin is really pioneering some of those great initiatives in our continent. So team, allow me just to say that in the African Union Digital, we are really looking into digital transformation, and we have an agenda on this, which aim to empower SMEs, individual, private sector to easily access the internet. It's an ambitious agenda, which is target is 2030, and which will stimulate trade and investment on the continent. And I think what we need to do is for member states to work with private sector and the civil society. So African Union member states is well on its way in digitalization on the continent, and for working on universal internet access as well. So let me just that today this innovative model that you are showing, that the Hunger Project is showing, I think is a model that is, we need to look at how we can scale it up, replicate it in Ghana itself, in all region of Ghana, but also in other countries of Africa. We salute you for that, and we will work together to make that happen in our continent. Lastly, let me just emphasize that in building a sustainable ecosystem, we need to adopt a holistic approach, an inclusive approach that spans across generation, across gender, and focusing on our own communities. That's what the Hunger Project is doing. So I will even add that what you are doing, Hunger Project, is discriminate in favor of women and put their need at top of our priorities. So really, I thank you. As I conclude, I once more commend the Hunger Project and the partners, Microsoft and Blue Town, for this initiative, and look forward to leverage this partnership, this platform, to scale up action in Ghana and beyond Ghana. We are available at the African Union to continue in this partnership. I thank you very much. Thank you. We can't hear you, Tim.
Thank you very much, Madam Diop, for your powerful words on Aulin, on connectivity, and women's leadership. And on that note, we are indeed very honored and excited to invite Her Excellency Amina Gurib Fakim to the floor for keynote remarks. Your Excellency.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good day and good evening. My sister, Binta Diop, thank you for associating me with this very important event. And Tim, thank you also for all the support given to enable this. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor and a privilege to be speaking to this forum today. And I would like to thank the organizers for this opportunity and why it is critical to mobilize and to commit to science and technology innovation, excellence in addressing Africa's development deficits, and providing opportunities to millions of Africans seeking pathways out of poverty, improve livelihoods, and halting environmental degradation on the continent. We are meeting at a consequential time in Africa's evolution. There has been low commodity prices, tight financial conditions, policy uncertainty, political insecurity, effects of the pandemics, as well as the vagaries of a changing climate. All these factors are having an impact. According to the World Bank, economic growth in sub-Saharan Africa is projected to be around 2.8% in 2021, and among some of the low levels in the past decades. And we know the effect of low growth. Development challenges are amplified, education suffers, public investment in health, nutrition, water, and sanitation are hit, and poor people get pushed deeper into poverty. And unfortunately, a higher percentage, they are women. But opportunities exist for Africa to increase GDP growth by 2 percentage points per year if we reach the AU goal of universal and affordable internet coverage. Ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, like my sister has just said, let me make my biases clear. As a former academician, lifelong scientist, entrepreneur, and past president, I sincerely believe that education, science, technology, innovation, and now connectivity have major roles to play in advancing knowledge for improving the everyday challenges faced by Africans. Equally important is the need to marshal innovation, mobilize investment, and strengthen Africa's academic institutions. Tapping Africa's vast human, scientific, and innovation potential will require vision, sound policies, and investment backed by keen implementation capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that Africa's greatest untapped potential lies in its people, especially youth, boys and girls, and also the empowerment of women. Yet, unfortunately, the World Economic Forum Global Gender Gap 2021 is suggesting that only 14% of those working in cloud computing, 24% of engineers and 32% of data and artificial intelligence professionals are women. Despite the growing demand for information and communication technology professionals, women, especially rural women, still trail their male counterparts in terms of pay, leadership roles, and representation in the digital sector. Many of the causes of the imbalance stem from social norms, stereotypes, and values cultivated in childhood and adolescence. Barriers blocking gender equality in the technology sectors arise early in life, with the lack of visible female role models in the ICT field playing a key part. However, the underrepresentation of women means their voices are absent from decision-making when it comes to designing our digital society. Channeling the tremendous reservoir of human capital to productive sectors and sustainable use of natural resources will not only offer unrivaled economic and social opportunities, but also mobilize youth to the urgent task of national and regional development. Ladies and gentlemen, for Africa needs to take a rightful place in a fully integrated global economy, and the conditions need to be created and sustained where a technically sound meritocracy can bloom, one that can connect the dots and accelerate the fight against myriad challenges requiring interdisciplinary approaches such as climate change. Harnessing new technologies, promoting research and development, translating academic research through entrepreneurship, and securing intellectual property rights are all ways and means of boosting innovation, productivity, jobs, and the ability to move up the production value chain. One of the dominating features of the 21st century is the remarkable growth and ubiquity of global communications affecting all facets of human endeavor. This surge in communication capability is unprecedented in human history. Our collective challenge is to mold those tremendous forces and bring them to bear on the common everyday problems facing Africans, especially rural African women who are often left out of the equation. Rural women stand to gain and contribute so much more when their digital literacy is enhanced, especially as digitization has many diverse and dynamic applications. The moment an economy embraces digitization, it allows sustainable business models to be developed that cut across the whole economy. One of the most celebrated outcomes of digitization is how it has encouraged endogenous innovation across sectors of the economy. Women who have access to the internet become more effective entrepreneurs and better job prospects in the formal economy. They have access to health information, education opportunities, agricultural forecast, and so much more. Access to the internet gives women access to critical information that can help them lead the communities toward the SDGs. Without equal access to technology and the internet, girls and women are not able to equally participate in society. Holding back girls and women in this area affects every aspect of their lives. As a pioneer of the African Women Leaders Network, we recognize the role of the network in advancing digitalization in parts of the continent, especially at the grassroots level. Our lane, since its launch in 2017, has been advocating in different domains of its 6 pillars: peace and security, governance, agriculture, financial inclusion, social mobilization, and the youth. Some of these issues are transversal and cannot be achieved without the full participation and ownership of the women themselves. To this end, the launch of the Connectivity Project in Ghana comes at a time when women are striving to bridge those barriers that have for too long held them back. And as we know, connectivity has many advantages, and one of those being the increase in the efficiency of the work. The ICT sector is expected to remain one of the largest employment categories in the world. It is benefited that Africa starts leading as well as this domain and not following. And this begins with bridging the digital divide and allowing women and girls access to the internet. Africa is in the right path to digitalization. Call on partners and stakeholders to mobilize and support the continent's effort and in ushering it to this new phase of its development, and of course, through inclusivity. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for those wonderful and inspiring comments. Your comments on realizing the scientific and entrepreneurial potential of the continent and in tapping the contributions of rural women through greater connectivity inspires us to reach even greater heights. Now is the time for us to act and to bridge the digital divide. Madam Diop, President Gurib Fakim, thank you so very much for being here. We are honored that you took time to join us during this very busy week. We've heard about challenges women in Africa face when trying to get online and about some of the solutions. And before we begin our roundtable discussion, I'm excited to share that the Hunger Project, Microsoft, Bluetown, and USAID have launched a new pilot program to bring internet access to more women in rural Ghana. This partnership will powerfully connect around 6,000 women to vital resources and knowledge that they will utilize to create waves of lasting development in their communities. The partnership leverages technology from Microsoft and Bluetown, as well as THV's expertise in mobilization and training to ensure that women have full and unhindered access to online resources. And of course, it's made possible with the leadership of the African Union. I'm honored to have several of the women working on this project and others like it join me today for our roundtable discussion. Now, to begin, I'd like to invite each one of our roundtable participants to introduce themselves and give a short introductory statement about their work before we start the conversation. Lydia, can I ask you to go first?
Yes, you can. Thank you so much for the introduction, Tim, and lovely to be here. My name is Lydia Karoon. I'm program lead for the Microsoft Airband Initiative, focusing on Africa and Asia. I work closely with Bluetown. The Airband Initiative is focused on connecting the unconnected. So we partner with internet and energy access partners to provide catalytic investment or resources for innovative solutions to connect last mile end users to the internet. I think what's really key here is we recognize that that connectivity is just a means to an end. So how do we increase the value proposition of connectivity and create tools working with our partners that get people actively engaging with the internet? Obviously, the work that's being done with the Hunger Project right now is one such project where we're looking at how to bring more women and girls online and how to really engage with local community. I think I'll keep it brief, but two things that are key that I hope everyone will take away is that the Airband Initiative always works with and through local partners. So Microsoft will never be the boots on the ground deploying the networks. We recognize that we don't have the expertise to understand barriers to access in every country or even on every continent. And so we really need the expertise of local partners, whether that be internet service providers, nonprofits, government organizations, and we really see those collective partnerships as keys to success. And then the second key is, although Microsoft has a very robust philanthropies team and branch, Airband does not sit on that team. So we're really looking for innovative ways to co-invest with our partners to create commercially sustainable and scalable business models. So that's a very key focus for us. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thanks, Lydia.
Yeah.
Nomso, can I turn to you next?
Thank you so much, Tim. And also, I feel very grateful to be part of this panel, this dialogue in discussing one of the most important and critical elements in this era that we are in, especially in Africa and specifically for women. As mentioned, my name is Nomso Kana, and by trade, I'm a nuclear scientist, but I happen to jump into broadband infrastructure, and I live as an entrepreneur in solving issues and problems regarding connectivity, rural connectivity, from peri-urban to metro cities. And I wear different hats, but my passion is really on gender equality and also ensuring that women are in the forefront of decision making, and also they are part of the solutions that are required in order to make Africa to propel in its economic activities. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Noam. So, Leni?
Yes, thank you so much, Tim. Thank you for inviting us to this panel today, and also, of course, inviting us or having us be part of this this collaboration and this partnership that we've launched today. I'm really proud of that and look forward to working more with you. We've worked together for a while already, but to continue that collaboration. So my name is Lena Schultz, and I'm with Bluetown. I'm based out of the US, San Francisco. And at Bluetown, as we are a small company, I wear many different hats, but it includes a number of dealing with a lot of our international partnerships and projects, which include, of course, this partnership with both Microsoft and the Hunger Project. Just coming back to Lydia's point about us having worked together with Microsoft for a while, we initiated our collaboration back in 2018, starting to connect communities in the eastern part of Ghana, and that point that have continued that work until today. So, and of course, also a lot of our work with women's digital inclusion falls under my hat as well. Just to introduce you to Bluetown, it may be the one company that some of you are not too familiar with. I can tell you that we are an internet and digital content service provider. We are headquartered out of Copenhagen, Denmark, but most of our teams, most of our employees are in the local markets that we serve. We are building local leadership in any market we're in. We currently have more than 3 million people under coverage, primarily in India and also in Ghana. We are also present in a few other African countries, and we have plans to expand into even more markets, also specifically in Africa over the next years. What sort of makes us maybe a little bit different from some other ISPs that are operating is that our mission from the beginning on has been to connect the unconnected. We work in semi-urban, rural and remote areas. We work in areas where we often encounter a very high rate of unserved or underserved populations. So populations that are really accessing the internet for the first time, which means that we have to focus not just on bringing that affordable connectivity solution that is necessary, but we also have to focus on building capacity and really relevance for the internet when we come into these areas. And to do that, we have developed what we call a rural connectivity model. It's also the one that we are working with in collaboration with the Hunger Project and Microsoft in the project that was just introduced. Our model has 4 different components that we bring into the project as well. Well, actually, it has 5 different components, because it's also something that I heard our esteemed speakers talk about before, is how important the partnerships, how important it is to bring up in all the stakeholders in order to make this possible, in order to create these self-sustaining rural digital communities. We need all stakeholders. So that's really an important component as well. But the other 4 components are, well, it's a portfolio of solar-powered infrastructure solutions that we have spent some years now to design, because it's very necessary when you go into these rural and remote areas that you bring down cost, both on the initial, the infrastructure, the initial investment side, but also on the running operating costs. Very important. It also includes something we call a local cloud, which is really a local content platform that enable free of charge and easy to access content for end users in these rural communities. As an example, you can think of, well, be it a government, an NGO, or a business that want to disseminate content to populations that they maybe previously had a hard time reaching. This may be content that even requires what you would call high bandwidth. You could talk about like high resolution video. It could even be that you were in a training scenario where you want to make sure that 15 people or even more at the same time could access the same content. So through our network, we can disseminate that content to the end users without them having to access the internet. So the end users don't have to pay to access this content in the end. The other two parts of our rural connectivity model are our micro operator concept. It's a concept that is also part of the project, where we involve local entrepreneurs who can help with capacity building, which includes also just basic digital literacy training, and also help address those local barriers that are present. The final component, I know I'm going a little bit long here. I just want to make sure that I've sort of introduced and also talked a little bit more about what we bring into the project before we start our discussion. But the final component is a digital impact framework that we've spent time developing together with UNDP, and also Deloitte has been part of that work. But basically what it means is that we have the ability to bring sort of a digital layer onto basically any impact framework. So for instance, what we could do when we work with the Hunger Project, we could layer your very elaborate women's empowerment framework onto with a digital component to it. And we can do that in other areas as well, talking about education or health, any agriculture, what you can think of. I want to round off. I want to end this introduction, but I just want to come back to the women part of it, which is also very near and dear to us at Bluetown. As I said, our mission is to connect the unconnected, and for us that means really all of them, not just half. And while we are impact driven, we are very focused on bringing everybody online, including women, but we are also spending a lot of time focusing on how we can create these long-term self-sustaining rural connectivity solutions. It's something that's really hard. There's a reason why almost half of the world's population still don't have access to the internet. It's not easy. So in order for us to do that, we simply realize that we need women as part of that solution. They need to also access and using the services in these rural communities. They make up 50% of both the users, the local talent, and leadership, as one of the speakers talked about before. It simply would not make sense not to make an effort to try to get more women online. And as a final thing, I can just say that it's something that we have to work on deliberately. It was also introduced that there is a gender gap, and it's something that we see every day in our work. If we don't do anything proactively, there is a significant gender gap in our markets as well. So sorry for the long-winded introduction.
Oh, thank you, Leni. Very, very much appreciated. And now to our fourth panelist, Stephanie.
Thanks, team. My name is Stephanie Ashley. I work with the Hunger Project Ghana as the project manager for the Women's Meaningful Access Project. I also coordinate the maternal and child health projects in the organization's operational areas. It's a great pleasure to join you on this platform today. So for the sake of the audience, I would want to give a brief background of THP Ghana. So the organization has been in existence for over 20 years, and we mostly work in the rural communities. We have about 45 multi-purpose buildings in 5 regions across the country called the epicenter. Each of the epicenter comprises of a clinic, a conference room, a kindergarten or a library, a food bank, and a microfinance bank called the Epiclips. Epiclips means Epicenter Cooperative Livelihood Improvement Society. So THP Ghana acknowledges the critical role of local leadership and empowers women as equal partners with men in the development agenda. We also make use of 3 main pillars in our epicenter strategy. So we focus on mobilizing community partners, empowering women, and build partnership with government institutions. So through an integrated holistic approach, our organization focuses on 6 main thematic areas in achieving its mission and eliminating hunger and poverty. So we focus on gender equality, health and nutrition, literacy and education, water, sanitation and environment, and as well as microfinance. So moving on to the project at hand, statistics have proven that women have less or no access to internet connectivity, not to even talk about owning or using smartphones. The gender digital divide in Ghana is more pronounced in the rural communities and has further been worsened by the incidence of COVID-19. So knowing that digitization has become a catalyst for transformation and development, in order not to leave our communities behind, THP has collaborated with Bluetown with funding from USAID, Microsoft, and Digital Frontiers to economically empower the women while promoting digital inclusion on this project. So the benefits attributed to digitization are multifaceted, pertaining to health, nutrition, education, agriculture, and women empowerment. So one will ask, how are we working to break the digital divide? So we are leveraging on our extensive experience in community mobilization, women empowerment, our mindset change, animated system, what we usually refer to as volunteers, infrastructure, and effective partnership with the government institutions in the various districts and municipal assemblies. The Hunger Project has a famous women empowerment training manual, which has been digitized just because of this project and will be uploaded onto the local cloud for free. This manual has information on gender equality, on interstate succession law. Other contents of the manual include information and laws regarding marriage rights, fundamental human rights, among others. All these are in the local language for easy comprehension and have English subtitles. So under the project again, we have smartphones with flexible terms of payment for the women and men in the communities. And this will help promote internet usage by the community partners. The project has also set up 3 ICT centers, trained 6 micro operators who are also volunteers to manage the ICT center, build capacity of community partners, mainly the women in the target group in digital literacy. They will also guide them to access relevant content on the local cloud. All these are for free. So these skills and information will help the women especially to gain employable skills, entrepreneurial skills, which will help improve livelihoods in the community. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussions for today.
Thank you all. Now I'd like to open up the conversation, and I'm hoping this can be a long-form conversation like a dinner party, very conversational. So I'll start with a question, and feel free, each of the panelists, to just chime in and build off one another's comments. So let me start with the first question, and I'll ask it to you for you to start with for us, Lena. In your experiences, panelists, what are some of the most exciting ways people are using the internet to improve their communities and their countries? Lena?
Sure, it's a big question because it's basically everything, right? Like when we think about our lives living in the Western world, having access to high-speed broadband every day, there are really no areas of our lives that aren't touched by technology. So there's so many ways that are exciting to see when local population, rural populations in, for instance, in Africa come online for the first time. I think for us, especially when we're operating in these areas, exactly where it is for the first time, it can actually be very basic, right? It's sort of that first access to early educational content, like kids and adults can better learn how to read. It's very basic when we talk about projects where we work with agriculture, where we can sort of bring in education on agricultural practices, even just like weather forecasts and access to market data, like things like that can sort of change lives. I think that some of those very basic things are very exciting for me to see. One other thing that is also on the basic side is sort of when we talk about health information, just bringing there are many of the communities where we serve where there are sort of no skilled healthcare workers, but just being able to bring like videos that can educate, for instance, on maternal health, there's so many exciting areas where it doesn't take much to sort of bring a difference for people in these rural communities. I let someone else chime in as well and can bring more information or more examples as well later on.
Great, thanks for that.
Yes, thank you. I think we can present this with what happened in over the past year and a half. And we have seen during the pandemic how it has been transformational, accessing information, connecting with people, connecting with families. I mean, all these issues. And when you just think, what would have happened if COVID happened 20 years ago? And there was no internet. In fact, the platform on which we are actually talking, the Zoom platform, has come into prominence in all our lives over the past few weeks, few months. But I think in Africa, where this is making a difference, and I've just seen a question here as to how the government and why should the women be accessing internet when they don't have access to food and water? But I think increasing the narrative is changing around digitization, around connectivity. It is now being perceived, and I think rightly so, that it is a right. It's a human right issue now that we're talking about access to connectivity, access to information. And what I have seen, at least in my country over the past year and a half, is how the digital space is helping women become more and more entrepreneurial in their work. And this has, for me, these are green shoots which are coming up. And I think governments have to pick this up and invest in the bandwidth so that this becomes possible. And the other thing that we have also seen, at least in my country for the past few years as well, is how digitization is cutting through the red tape in many countries. And I think there has been also, because the red tape is being cut, getting a permit, getting whatever it is in terms of, formalities, we are also seeing a reduction in corruption, the corrupt practices which have been there all along. And digitization is cutting through all this. But I think where it matters for women more is precisely having access to all these services that she had been denied so far. Because when they go to a counter or somewhere, they see a woman's face, and the way the approach differs. But when it's online, it's slightly more anonymous, and she may be getting access to this information, to this data, to this whatever faster. So already, I think it is cutting down this disparity a great deal. So I think it's we increasingly have to craft the narrative around digitization, access to bandwidth, access to the internet as being a basic human right. And this will be able to change the narrative, not just in Africa, but everywhere else. But in more the developing world, it makes such a big difference when women have access to these technologies. Thank you.
Tim, allow me to react also, and just to latch on what Madam Her Excellency Amina has mentioned. And I think from the startup side and running a company in the Southern Africa, where in 2013, the UN qualitative study did classify that 63% of the Southern Africa is classified as rural. And within those areas, you find that more than 66% of the population is female. So our work is really working towards bridging that unconnected citizens. And what we've seen, honestly, with data to back it in the past, since the pandemic kick-started, is that women have become more entrepreneurial. And you find them in the informal informal business sectors, hair salons, food, and the likes of selling clothes and that. They have become such digital entrepreneurs. And I think for us not to classify internet access as a human right and prioritize it, it will really be a damning effect in the upcoming years. I think it's quite important for women, number one, to lead in this sector. And I think also part of that is the usage of mobile technology in these areas is quite dominant. And I do want to emphasize that there is a need for fixed broadband so that women in rural areas, they get, you know, this high speed internet access, and also they also get the benefits of having to utilize the internet fully, because we have seen with acceleration of digital transformation through the pandemic, you know, the pandemic also has had a positive effect. It accelerated digital transformation in most African countries. So it has allowed women to really tap into that space and really, you know, appropriate and also explore what they can get out of this space. And I'm really grateful that, you know, African Black women are tapping into this, and they are realizing their value in the economy, and they are also forging ahead to create more digital products so that they can contribute greatly in the economy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nomsa. Very exciting. And to hear about women connecting and then making an impact. I just want to draw everyone's attention to the Q&A. Stephanie just responded to an interesting question. And if other audience members have a question, feel free to write it in there and you can read Stephanie's response there. Any others on what they're, very good.
I wanted to add on a bit to what Nomsa said. So she stated emphatically that COVID had come to change things. People have gone more digital in our communities now. So currently you can sit in the comfort of your home, have access to your bank account, have some transactions, and also monitor your balance in your account. And also we have this, there are people who are able to access these internet for agriculture information regarding the weather, also have access to market their farm produce. So I wanted to share a bit of information that is like stories happening on the ground now. So just about a week or two ago, we organized some lunch events in relation to the project in our rural communities, and we have quite interesting scenarios here. So there was this young lady, about 16 years of age, and she is in one of the schools in Akode. So during the lunch event, we invite young girls on board to have a try at the Epicenter ICT Center. So she sat behind one of the machines, and all of a sudden she started Googling things she had learned in class. And you could see all excitement drawn all over her face. And we asked why she was so excited. She said she has been trying to understand things that she has been taught in class, but thanks to the ICT Center that has been made available to them, she's able to see get the practical demonstration to be able to understand what she has been taught. So because of that, we were able to get in touch with her headmaster, the headmaster of the school, and we asked them to draw a schedule for their classes so that they can make an arrangement and then be visiting the Epicenter ICT Center. That way they could pick up a skill or two. We also had this issue with a young woman who is an apprentice. She went like, of what use will this internet be to me? So we asked her what she is involved in. She mentioned that she is an apprentice understudying a seamstress. So we just asked her to sit comfortably, and we opened the web page, Google, and we key in trendy African styles. She was so excited. She was like, wow, I have to bring my madam and my other colleagues here, because we could pick up a style or two to be able to sell to our customers and also get more money. That way we can extend our businesses in the community. This is just to share a few. I'll allow the panel members to also share theirs as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any other stories from the communities?
I will keep it very brief, since I think I would echo what everyone chimed in and said. But I think, you know, from the Microsoft side, especially at looking from the outside in, one of the most exciting things is looking and seeing community-driven technology solutions. So, and looking at the evolution of what connectivity means. So when you first get online and you have access to hotspots, and then there's that drive for home connectivity, or you start start using entrepreneurship tools like using WhatsApp to sell goods, and then developing other solutions that make it easier to continue doing that. So I think one of the most exciting things that we see is through our local partners coming to us and saying, you know, we've identified a need for X, Y, and Z. How can we use technology, and how can we use tools that are available to actually build out innovative solutions that work for last mile users, instead of trying to come in from the outside and say what will work for last mile users.
One thing also is worth, I think, pointing out is that one of the success stories coming out of Africa has been mobile money. And I think M-Pesa out in East Africa has been, you know, a game changer, if only for the country, Kenya. I think, if I recall, 30% of the entire GDP of the country goes through the system of M-Pesa. And there are many ways in which agriculture is being impacted. And we see that in countries like Mali and Senegal, where even in Rwanda, where drones are helping to plant trees. I think it's we are really at the beginning of this very, very important tsunami, which is going to, you know, run over the continent. But what it calls for as well is increased collaboration and partnership between the public and the private sector, and to see to it that, you know, it is sustained, because Africa now represents also 1.2 billion and up to 2 billion by 2050 in terms of markets. And, you know, it's a huge internal market. And I think it can be rightly tapped. And I know a project which is being done as well to ensure distribution of agriculture produce through blockchain technology. And it has been carried out, I think, in Cameroon with great success. And so it prevents the price of crop crushing, and it benefits the farmers immensely. So it can be rolled up, but I think there's also the downside. We have to regulate. And I think this is where, again, we call for government and the region to play the referee and the sheriff in these particular circumstances. But definitely, I think we are at the cusp of huge transformation through digitization. But again, we all have to play our parts and make it happen. But definitely making it accessible to rural women, especially, will make a big change, especially in the realm of agriculture.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And maybe building on that, could I ask the other panelists what they would need to do to ensure that women have equal access to the resources and they're able to leverage the resources to support themselves, their families, and their communities?
So maybe, Tim, before I leave the conversation, because the chair have just called me, but just think to follow on what Madam President has said. Some of the initiative that exists in Kenya, in Senegal, and other countries, is really access to the mobile money for women that to do the transfers, especially during the COVID, so they don't need really to go to the bank to queue, etc. And also access to, because we have climate change, but also in the Sahel and the Lake Chad Basin, where I work, you know, on women in refugee camps, you know, you see that this is the technology that can help really for them to be, you know, being in the camp, but also being outside, to be mobile, to connect to their family, to connect to their children. And I think that is also something we need for those who are really in remote area, but in refugee camp and displaced camp. But one other areas that we need also to look at is data collection, because we need really to look at this, that area. We are working with AU and ECA on those, but I think the new technology and this will help us to, especially in some of the initiative, the goals that we have seen, the SDG and so on, to be able to measure the progress that we have been making, but also to plan better, to bring back better, you know, and that's what we aim at. And I think at AU, we are looking at that to empower the population, but at the grassroots on collecting also the data. And I think that can be done through this. So again, I wanted to thank Lydia, but all the panelists, Lynn, because team, what the work that they are doing for us, but we continue. I think this is just the beginning of the conversation. And I think, Madam President, we need to scale it up with Aulin. We need to see where we can implement those with the team, and all the Hunger Project partners, as well as Stephanie. Thank you. So my staff is on standby. They are following. Fatu is with us, but I'm just going to the next door. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Diop.
Yeah, thank you. It's all so very insightful. But I just want to sort of also follow up from Her Excellency Amina when she was talking about entrepreneurship, because I think that's one of the truly exciting areas, is that just going to visit some of these very rural communities, how you see that women are entrepreneurs, people are entrepreneurs already. This is someone who has lived in Silicon Valley for many years. For some people, that will be surprising there, that entrepreneurs exist everywhere, and they do. And it's just also truly exciting then to see how these digital tools can really empower these women to sort of leverage that into entrepreneurships and their entrepreneurial businesses, and taking them beyond these local communities, because I think that's what we're really looking for, right? Is we're looking to ensure that rural populations can become part of the world or the global economy, as you would say, right? So that's all the way from, as Lydia mentioned, I know she's referring to a specific example of a woman that we visited together, a market woman who had come online and sort of immediately found this opportunity to be able to actually market beyond her local physical market, to market to people that had visited her already, and be able to sell more of her crafts when they went back to where they came from, these tourists. And she was even shipping products to the US. She found also the supply chain way of doing that, which was also exciting to hear. But still, being at that market, it was also interesting to hear how all the women were requesting more, right? Like they sort of started to take advantage in the way they knew and the ways that were obvious to them, but sort of what was that next step? Because I think for Lydia and me, we were a little bit puzzled to hear that you would market through WhatsApp. It doesn't seem like the most efficient way to market your products in social media and digital media. So how can we ensure that when we bring these digital solutions, that we also bring that education that ensures that these women can leverage these technologies to the fullest? And I think the last part I want to say about that is another thing that truly excites me, and something that we definitely want to work on in this project, and also in other projects coming, is to how can we make sure that it's not just local work, that they can become part of a global workforce. How can we empower women to become part of, have remote employment opportunities, or even contribute to digital earning opportunities, right? There's a lot of micro work that's being done digitally today. Why can't some of that work be done by women in rural areas, so that they can become part of the global economy from their local communities?
Yeah, Lena, I apologize.
Yeah, no, carry on.
I was actually going to agree with your point, Your Excellency, circling back to your point about the importance of government. I think what we have seen is, in order for projects to be truly sustainable and scalable, there really needs to be government and regulatory involvement. It can't just be private sector partners or NGO partners who are driving this. So the importance of working really closely with the government to understand national priorities and national needs is huge, and definitely, you know, what we've seen as most impactful in our largest projects.
Yeah, and you know, increasingly it is being said now that data is the new oil. And so this is, and many countries, the big ones, they are playing a very important role in terms of the data management. And we all know that it is very much a bit of the Far West in terms of the approach towards the digital space. So I hope that this will be addressed as well as we move on, because as I said, it's a wild west out there. So we need to be very careful as well, and really work with the regulators and make it happen, because data is the next big thing now.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I was going to ask as well, is there any projects, maybe not the hunger project, but anything that involve the girl child, coding, for example, is that happening at all anywhere? Just a general question. It has nothing to do with the hunger project per se.
And
Sorry.
Okay, Lynn, go first.
No, I can just respond quickly that it's definitely something that we are interested in and we are looking at. But honestly, connecting rural communities, I'm not sure it's the right first step of when you introduce women to digital work. Like, there's other work that can be sort of a stepping stone to programming and working in that area.
Yes.
So it's something I see as a vision, but maybe not the first step when you go to rural communities. There's so many things that sort of comes first, but I definitely think that's what we should be aiming for.
Yeah. And another area, which is, I'm not prescribing or anything, I just, when you read about it, it's Africanized content. So that, because there's a big move now to Africanize the content, education and agriculture, it is coming in a big way as well, because if you look at the strategy of a company like Nestle, for example, now already we are looking at the food summit, which is already starting in New York. So in terms of the Africanization of foods and the content for education and how to make it relevant and fit for purpose for these women and for these girl child, I think of them all the time. So maybe if there is anybody interested in that space, then this is also not just yourself but other partners in terms of developing content, because that's very important as well. And just to take it one step further, I know Netflix has been looking at African content as well, but that's another space. But in terms of the educational, there is, again, a niche area there that needs to be addressed in terms of developing content which really responds to the needs of the African ladies and the African child generally.
I think you are so right, Your Excellency, because in even digitizing our women empowerment manual, we actually have to contextualize what is happening in the local community. That way they'll be able to easily identify and comprehend the information you relay out to them. So this is very key. And just drawing you back a bit, you talked about if there was any initiative to guide girls in coding. So I think Ghana Education Service has a similar initiative where they have linked up with women in IT. I think it's called STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So it's more or less like a mentorship program where they get young girls on board and then teach them coding and then get them to understand digital literacy. Thank you.
Okay.
Terrific. Maybe we can go back to the digital divide question. What do you each think we need to do to limit that digital divide? Are there policies? Are there platforms or programs? We're doing a lot already.
From my perspective, it's really a blended approach. I think, as Stephanie just said, one of the key things is being very intentional. We've seen that it's not enough just to provide connectivity, and that, just because people have internet coverage, it doesn't necessarily mean that there'll be an uptick, and that's especially true of marginalized communities. So how do we be very intentional about reaching communities and providing them with tools that actually make internet valuable? And then I think the other piece, as we've talked about many times, is partnership. This can't be done by any one company or organization or government on their own. We really need to look at a blended approach where we can pull in strengths from multiple parties, and really, make sure that we're looking at digital inclusion holistically.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so to add a bit to what Lydia said, we could also advocate for government to reduce taxes for the telcos, because it has been quite difficult for them to reach out to the rural communities. If the taxes are able to be reduced, I'm sure they would be able to reach out to the rural communities where prices of internet usage will be very low. That way we'll get a wider coverage. We could also help introduce digital inclusion in the school curriculum. So currently in the country, I know for the private sectors, ICT is introduced at the kindergarten level. That is dependent on the resources available. But in the government schools, it's only introduced at the upper primary level. So if you could advocate for this, I think it's a way to go to get this gap bridged.
Terrific, thank you. And you mentioned costs there briefly, Stephanie. I know one of our audience members asked the question. With very poor populations, how can they afford cell phones and internet costs, they ask, when the vital essentials of food and shelter are difficult to manage? Any comments on this, panelists?
Okay, so I think I even sent an answer to the person who sent the question. So I stated that under the project, we have made available phones, lease to own phones with flexible payment terms. The phones, I think the brand of the phones are Itel P15. It's very cheap. It's 330 Ghana cedis. We could do the conversion later. So if you want to pay within 3 months, it's 350. For 6 months, it's 390. So it keeps increasing dependent on the duration in which you want to pay. And there is a T&C attached, of course. So you have to have a savings account with the microfinance. I think I forgot to mention this bit, that the microfinance part is also included in the project. That way we could also grant loans to people, especially the women in the community. So of course, if you're able to have a savings account with the microfinance, they are able to guide you as to how to pay for the cost of the phone. So it's quite flexible.
I think it has to be flagged as well that, having a phone now, as you have rightly said, Stephanie, is that it is very cheap. You can access a phone, and the phone now is also catering for those who are unbanked. And this is, I think, where there's a huge, again, market in Africa for those people who are unbanked, and where mobile money, it goes through, it is easily transferred for the mobile phone. So, I don't think the argument is there in terms of whether they can afford food or buy a phone. The phone now is one of the basic utilities with which they can buy food. With which they can access, many things, as you said, even help them set up their enterprise. But I think the one thing that is missing, and this is where I think it accentuates the digital divide on the continent, is the cost. Definitely, in some countries, it's very, very expensive. And also the infrastructure, which is very often not there. So this is where, again, it calls for quite a big amount of investment in that space. But I think government who are serious about empowering the young people, I think this is one of the areas where the investment must come in, and must come in fast.
Thank you.
I can definitely, I can definitely attest to that the affordability is sort of the first barrier we have to break out of many barriers we have to break in order to ensure that there's digital inclusion globally. But sorry, I lost my train of thought now, but I just want to say that it is something that can be worked on. We can bring down that cost. We are actively working on doing that. And then I also have to think about how we can bring partners in to ensure that actually it's not the local community necessarily that have to pay the brunt of this, both the investment, but also the operating side. As you say, it's not just investing in infrastructure, as if you talk about a solar project, you can bring in solar panels and then there's energy in a community. The internet is very, very different because the operating costs are very high. And actually, for some reason, the operating costs are much higher in Africa than in many other places in the world. The backhaul cost is just very, very high. So it's hard for an ISP to sort of bring that those standards of what affordable internet is without working together with all partners to make that happen. But talking about barriers, as I said, it's not just affordability. There are really a lot of other barriers, and ensuring that you bring the relevance of the internet, that you can show in these local communities that there is a reason to go online, and particularly when we talk about women, we need to make sure that women are sort of empowered or have the agency to actually use the internet for their benefit. And I think that's where the Hunger Project as an organization comes in, because they are present there locally. They can help address those local issues that may be in place in order to ensure that women are also accessing the internet.
Thank you. Well, maybe I'll turn now to the Sustainable Development Goals. We're 10 years away from achieving those. This is an important week in New York. I know the goalkeepers are keeping track, and we, of course, fell behind on many of those, including one that's near and dear to us at the Hunger Project, that is Zero Hunger. I wonder if any of the panelists could share some of their thoughts on the importance of this particular goal of inclusive access, of connectivity to reaching the Sustainable Development Goals within the next 10 years.
I think we could have had perhaps a more optimistic conversation 2 years ago, before the pandemic. Unfortunately, many of the gains have been eroded, and one can only be, kind of realist. I'm not going to say optimist or pessimistic. Look out for this. But I think to be realistic about it, I think these 2 years have really set us back quite a bit, especially in Africa. And I mean, we just look at, for example, women's rights issues, and we have seen domestic violence, which has soared. And we have seen so many gains which we have made since the major Beijing conference on CEDAW, which have been set back. And I think what the digital, what the COVID has also done, unfortunately, it has really increased inequality. And the inequality we have seen, and I think many people have capitalized on the space, on the digital space, precisely to be rich, where there's no harm in that. But we find that maybe the regulators haven't done their job properly. And this is where, again, we call for regulators to do something about this. And we have seen also access to food has been very much an issue in countries where there has been no social safety net. There, I think of a country which was, of course, was egregious poverty, is in India, for example, when these people, the migrant workers, had to leave. So I think this is, where the internet has to step up and see how we can reduce the gap. And it can be done, but how do we go about it? I mean, this is what we have to start thinking. But unfortunately, many of the gains that have been made over the few years, in fact, Africa, we have seen it's in Africa itself. We've had successive and progressive growth for many years. Many reforms across the world have happened in African countries. And these are the countries that were champion, and now all of a sudden, they have been set back quite a bit. So I think when this meeting is over in New York, I think they have to sit back and really reassess where we are. And, I don't know whether it's fair to say we need to reprogram Agenda 2030 to maybe Agenda 2035. But I think it would give people some time to really address some of the critical issues. And one of them, of course, is access to food.
I truly agree with you, Your Excellency, in the way that what has really regressed now in reaching the SDGs, specifically for the African youth, is that the lockdown regulations and the contactless movements. African youth are quite vibrant and they are always moving, so it has slowed down the progress of the African youth. And I think if we propel broadband connectivity and really ensure there are numerous innovative ways where we can encourage the youth to be entrepreneurial, as well as to really be focused in getting solutions that solves their community challenges. So, you know, in just latching and just adding to what Her Excellency Amina has mentioned, I think countries, specifically in Africa, we must develop national digital scorecards that can measure the progress of achieving broadband targets that are so specific, and also they are reaching for the African population, which is quite dominated by youth and females. Most importantly, you know, our median age is sitting at 18, and that median age is youthful and female. So if we have these that are interlinked with SDGs, then it's going to give each and every country a way to say, we are working towards to reaching this in order to ensure that the African youth is propelled, and also they are utilizing for their own benefits the advanced technologies in this 4IR era that we are in. And this will really assist the progress, and also to really accelerate, because we have really progressed in areas, though we mentioned that you know, the coming of the pandemic has fast-tracked digital transformation, but there are certain areas where we really have digressed as the African continent. And this is now where the African youth must rise even more in order to lead in this era and ensure that we are in the forefront in implementing the SDGs. Thanks.
Yeah. And one thing, Nomso, is that when you talk about the youth of Africa, and what I've seen over the past year is the creativity that has shot up. They have shown a lot of creative projects, be it in music, be it in art, be it in design, and that has gone up big time. So I think, as I said, these are some of the green shoots which have appeared. So I think governments and respective organizations, they can build on this, and you can unleash a whole new pillar of the economy, going through the creativity that can be achieved through the digital space, and also through what they can do. And this is where, again, the African content matter, because I have seen a net valorization of African traditions, African art, African print, African design. So this pillar can really become transformational if we want to really cater for the energy of the youth, and make it through their creativity, their know-how, and also with the ungirding of African culture and African tradition. So I think there's plenty to be done in that space.
Very exciting to envision a future together of those women tapping in and their entrepreneurial spirit unleashed. I want to turn now to our audience. Any questions for our esteemed panelists? We've had a few great questions here in the chat box. Most of them have been answered. Thank you very much to our panelists who have written in answers. We covered costs. We covered specific steps to influence governments. That might be something to expand on. In what ways can communities influence their governments to support projects in the rural countryside?
Any project that can help create jobs, I think, will draw the attention of deciders and leaders, because that's what they want to speak to their constituency, that this investment has helped them create jobs and can improve the GDP or whatever can be done. So that will be welcome. So I think this is something that they will be very attentive to and speak to their communities and speak to their respective cabinets.
Terrific. And as you mentioned earlier, Your Excellency, to bring that GDP back up, it would be nice to see Africa reclaim that lead in GDP growth that was there before the pandemic, much higher than in Western Europe or here in the Americas.
Yes, True.
Yeah, and also, Tim, community involvement is very important. I've seen it in my line of business in rolling out telecoms infrastructure. Is number one, when you roll out a mobile infrastructure for telecommunication services, especially in rural areas, it's important to really understand the terrain, the design, and so on and so forth. But now to put the infrastructure on the ground, you need the inclusion of the community. So I've seen how communities, they enjoy when they are being lobbied in because they have the ability to actually share their own ideas on in which how this can be protected, and also how they can be also stewards over this very same infrastructure that is there to serve them. And also, you know, communities from there, then they begin to understand how they can start building on top of that in order to create opportunities for themselves. I mean, I've seen how when we're rolling out infrastructure in several areas here in SA, how women, number one, I was so excited to see them that they actually started to build digital products. So they would have, you know, their own channels on how they can showcase, you know, someone has an afro like me, how to look after your hair, and also how to book appointments, and also how to ensure that you reach them for any consultation. And this is how communities are utilizing internet infrastructure, and they are really innovative. And this is now where decision makers, policy makers need to be on the ground in order to understand that, you know, you can't make decision over people that you have not been in their shoes. You need to be in their shoes and be able to create policies and also formulate ways on how they can make sure that it is sustainable, and also it just sustains the community as it advances using technology.
Terrific.
Tim,
I just want to quickly tag on. Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Her Excellency.
I will have to apologize because I'm joining the food summit on the other side, if you excuse me. So it's been a pleasure sharing with you, and let's stay in touch.
Madam President,
Thank
thank
you.
you very, very much for joining
you.
us today. It's been a pleasure
Thank you so much.
to have you on this
Thank
panel.
you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
No, so I just want to add to that as well. Also working in rolling out infrastructure in Africa, it's just, I just want to add and emphasize how important that local involvement truly is. Like, it cannot be done without local involvement. It should not be done without local involvement. And even when we create programs like this, that we ensure that we bring in the local community, that they are part of developing these projects into what works for them, like what it can be. That we ensure that we bring in, when in our case, emphasize with emphasis on women, that we bring in women to be these local sort of representatives for what this project is and could be, that we bring in women that can be the local trainers, the local women that can be the local trainers, and help develop that training along the way. Like, there can be a starting point, but I think it has to sort of evolve as we go along. And our hope with the project here is specifically that we can develop at least a platform for bringing more inclusivity to women. But I think that no matter where we go, even in the same country or in the world, it will always have to be sort of adapted locally every single time. And one other thing I want to talk about on the infrastructure side, and I think Stephanie may be able to add to that too, is that our experiences just deploying in the Hunger Project side is that there was also some resistance to us bringing in these towers. Like, it was technology or things that people hadn't seen before. So there were a lot of questions that needs to be addressed. And I think it's very important for us bringing the infrastructure that we are equipped to have those conversations and to ease people. And of course, when introducing the infrastructure, and then also assisting people sort of get to that point where they are comfortable with that technology being in place in their communities.
Hello, if I'm allowed to add on. So I agree I agree with Nonso and Lenny in relation to the community mobilization and community participation. So that is what CHP is all about. In all our projects, I think I stated that we focus on the three main pillars: community mobilization, which automatically includes community mobilization and participation. We have realized that without participation, our projects are not sustainable. So they have been very key in all implementation of our projects, in all the implementation stages. So speaking to what Lini talked about regarding the ICT center where there was conflict. So when the telecommunication masts were being hosted in some of the epicenters, they were quite aggressive. They have heard that when the mast is mounted in your community, you are prone to some radiation emission. So fortunately, the technical team from Bluetown was on board, and they had to explain to them that this kind of mast do not radiate any emission. So we were able to solve that issue, and then we posted the mast, and now the internet service is on and working perfectly well. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I just want to add that so that's part of our job, but it was also so crucial to have the Hunger Project and the local community involved in that conversation, because that can also be hard coming from the outside, so to speak, and having those conversations and convincing local communities. So I think that's, again, where it becomes really relevant to work together with organizations that are on the ground and, of course, the local community.
You know, building on that, let me ask another question about the first steps in a community. And in particular, I know we have epicenters, work with communities across the continent, and women are going online sometimes for the very first time. So I'd ask, and maybe I'll start with you, Stephanie, what do you think is the most important step that we need to take to ensure that women have equal access to the resources?
Okay, thanks, Tim. That is a very interesting question because it actually relates to what exactly we are doing here in the field. So what we are doing here is empowering women in digital literacy. They have to understand the need. They have to understand that digitization has come to stay. They have to identify with it. And we have also drawn out the benefits of using the internet to them. And we are also helping to break cultural barriers, because I know in some countries, women are not allowed to use phones. It doesn't happen here often. Just we have issues with affordability and accessing internet coverage in the country. So according to the GSMA gender reports in 2020, the following were identified as barriers for women in mobile ownership and then internet usage. So the focus was on affordability, family not approving women using internet and phones, relevant content, of course, comes to play. So under the project, I think I mentioned earlier that we have been able to develop local content that the local populations identify with. So pertaining to agriculture, we have put on relevant content, focusing on the kind of crops that they grow in their communities. We have also, and all these are in the language that they can understand. We have also made provision for them in the financial services. So we have on board smart cards that will be selling or handing over to the women in the communities to be able to access the financial services in the community. So it's all about access. It's all about access. And then, of course, when it comes to infrastructure, this partnership will speak for itself, with Bluetown coming on board, Microsoft coming on board. The epicenter infrastructure has always been there. So we have been able to allocate a room where Bluetown, with funding from Bluetown and then Microsoft, we have been able to purchase computers for the place. And we have made use of the local resources. Earlier, I was explaining that we train people as volunteers, what people normally refer to as volunteers. We call them animators because they are taking through a mindset change to be able to empower their community partners. So we have trained women and men who identify with people in the community. So they are always available at the ICT center to guide the women through. So this is what is being done specifically in the centers, and also to just help women get access.
Important work, Stephanie. Thank you very much.
I think to that point, just, you know, at a very base level, making sure that connectivity is available in safe places for women, which is so often overlooked, but especially if setting up hotspots or targeting micro entrepreneurs, being very intentional about that early on and making sure that from a basic level, the infrastructure is in areas where women can use it, so you can then pull in you know, content, relevant content, and address all these other barriers. And that's what's so exciting about this project with the Hunger Project in Bluetown, because the Hunger Project already has established those safe areas for women. They've already established the community connections. It makes it very accessible very early on.
And just tacking on to that, talking about safety, Lydia, you're talking specifically about physical safety, but I think there's also a sort of a virtual safety component in this, that you ensure that you bring in early digital literacy training, that women can feel and are safe online, because that's another big issue that will be brought in when we bring in the internet. Is there's also violence and other issues that women can encounter in the virtual space.
Terrific. Well, this has been such a wonderful discussion. I wonder if we could close with a quick comment from each of you in a sentence or two. What do you think we should focus on going forward?
If I may jump in there, Tim.
Please.
Is so number one, continuous building and advocacy on internet access, and also building resilient internet infrastructure, because we've seen it that it is a human rights, and also look into building partnerships, P models, in order to include rural communities and underserved communities, where we know that women are really at the mercy of poverty, and ensuring that there are digital skills that are injected within that, and also utilize, ensure women that are in the forefront of leadership, and also they are in the tables of discussion of discussing solutions in order that their communities are improved. We know that when you invest in a woman, you invest in a community, because we have the ability to multiply and ensure that where we are, we nourish the areas where we are. So it's also for women entrepreneurs. There should be always funding that specifically targets women, because we are in the forefront, once again, of solving problems in our areas. Thank you so much.
Terrific comments. Thank you. Any others on the focus on the way ahead?
I can jump in.
Sure. Go ahead, Lydia.
Say, you know, I'm a bit of a broken record here, but I think thinking innovatively about partnerships and how to provide financing so that we can support companies that are doing local work, or nonprofits that are doing local work. We're getting there, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And so I think, you know, examples like this, where we can showcase what it looks like to bring multiple partners together with a strong community focus, are so vital to then scale and create these really sustainable both infrastructures and business models, so that we continue to grow.
Yeah, I would be even more of a broken record if I repeated what both of you just said. So it's the exact same things: the partnerships, creating the sustainable solutions in these rural communities, and then of course being intentful about bringing women online. I think that's a big part of it, that we have to work on this. It doesn't happen by itself.
Okay, so I absolutely agree with all of you. So I think multi-stakeholder partnership is the way to go. And this is an exact testimony of that. We could also advocate and push for policies and strategies that bring women to the decision table, and also include women in digitization. Thank you.
Terrific. Well, what a fantastic discussion. And I want to first thank all of the panelists here, plus Madam Diop and our honored president that joined us today, for sharing all the expertise and all the experience. Really a wonderful discussion. And second of all, I just want to thank the audience. Great questions. Thanks for being with us. And we really appreciate your jumping into this topic, which is so important to so many women around the world. Now, we've heard so much today about the importance of women engaging meaningfully online, some of the challenges they face and some of the challenges we all face in making it happen. And thankfully, some of the solutions were presented here in this panel. Now, it's very clear to me, and probably to all of us, that universal access is critical to achieving the SDGs. And we know that women who have access to the internet become more effective entrepreneurs. They have better job prospects in the formal economy. They have access to health information, educational opportunities, agricultural information, and so much more. And it allows women to step forward and lead their communities to self-reliance. So what a great discussion. And I just want to thank you all once again. And yeah, we'll close a little bit early and really appreciate all you've brought to the discussion today. Thank you all very much.
Thanks so much, Tim.
Thank you. So,
Welcome.
thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye now.